Most people I talk to that want to move to Montana dream of a piece of property like the one we're about to put on the market. I thought I'd take you along as we head out there and take a look at this incredible property. We're going to talk about the things that we look for and the things that you should look for if you're trying to buy a large piece of property like this. This is a Montana dream property. It's on over 30 acres. There's a stream running through it. There's a pond on the property. It has spectacular views, an unbelievable house, and it borders the National Forest. Wait till you see this place. Let's go check it out. So what you're going to see a lot here in Montana, especially on these bigger properties, are road easements, and that's for neighbors to access their property, and they have to get through yours to get to it. So like this one, this is an easement through here for the neighbor's property, but it's something to check into and something to think about, especially if you're at the end of the easement. There's only two houses on this one. Where I'm standing is the first one. There is one more property that goes behind me here back down into the woods. And if you're that particular guy, what you need to think about is the road maintenance and what happens in the winter, especially here in Montana with all the snow that we get. So if the piece of property you're looking at is the furthest one in that uses this easement, you're going to want to make sure you have some sort of road agreement or some sort of understanding as to who's going to maintain it in the winter, or if you're pitching in to hire a guy or one of you does it, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you have some sort of an agreement as to who's going to take care of the road, because you don't want to be 2 miles down the road and then get to this point and it's not plowed and then you can't get out, or you have to plow the whole thing yourself all the time. So the road easement is one of the things you definitely want to look into. And the thing about road easements is that they never go away. They go with the land. No matter how many times you sell the property, they stay with the land. So unless you and the neighbor agree to go and get rid of it and record a new easement, but unless the neighbor can get in a different way, they're never going to do that. So again, road easements are pretty common up here, but they're definitely something you need to look into. So another thing you want to think about is if you look over here, this particular property has a guest house with it. It actually has a caretaker's house and a guest cabin up a little further that way. But what you need to think about in this aspect of a property is, are there covenants or zoning that prohibit you from doing VRBO or Airbnb if that's what you want to do? Obviously, some people aren't going to want to do that. But if you're planning on, buying a big piece of property like this and renting out one of the houses or both of the houses or all of the houses, you want to make sure that that's allowed. So make sure you check into the covenants and the zoning, and you'd be surprised, even way out here in the middle of the woods, there are some areas that do have covenants or zoning. It just depends on how the property was developed in the beginning, and if the original owners put any kind of covenants down or rules down, or the county may have some sort of zoning out here too. So another thing to check into with the covenants is if there are any restrictions on animals. When you have big pieces of property like this, a lot of people like to have chickens, cattle, horses, whatever it may be. So that's just another thing to think about when you're reviewing the covenants, just to make sure you can do what you want to do. So as we talked about earlier, this property sits right along a stream, which is awesome. Who doesn't want this in their backyard? But one of the things you need to check into if you are buying a property along a stream or a river are the floodplain maps and the floodplains, because it's definitely going to affect your insurance depending on where the stream is in relation to your house or the road to get in there. On this particular property, it's not an issue at all, because as you can see, the stream is way below where the house is. We're way up there to the main house, so the stream can flood all at once and it's not going to affect anything on this property. But you just want to make sure that if you are looking at waterfront properties along a river, check into the stream and the flood zones in that area. This property borders National Forest Service land, and that's the land you can see up behind me. And that is awesome news because nobody can ever build there, and it's always going to look like it does now. The only thing that some people think is bad news is obviously national forests are open to the public, so the public can walk right along the edge of your property as long as they stay in the Forest Service land. That's perfectly legal because Forest Service land is public, as it should be. So along the lines of public usage, let's go back and take a look at the creek here. Montana stream laws allow people to use these public waterways as long as they stay below the high water mark. So people can wade down this creek and fish, or they can raft down it. And even though this river or stream runs through private property, people can still use it as long as they stay below the high water mark. So there's no such thing as, I don't care how much money you have here in Montana, you can't buy a huge piece of property and think that the stream or river is private. It's all, and I think that's a great thing here in Montana. And I know some states have different laws, but here in Montana, it's one of the best laws we have, is that everything is open to the public as far as streams and rivers go for fishing and recreating. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can never buy a huge piece of property and think you have your own private river in the backyard. People can use it as long as they stay below the high water mark. So I told you earlier about having a pond on this property. Well, this is an extensive water feature. It's a little creek that they built that goes down into the pond. So one of the things you want to check into here is to make sure the pump system and everything's working properly for this particular pond, or if you're at a similar property with any sort of water features or whatever, especially if you're looking at them in the winter. You just want to make sure everything's working properly before you get to the middle of summer and find out you gotta replace pumps or dig something up. So this pond out here is one of the great features of this property. You can fish out here, you can paddleboard, just hang out by the water. They got a little peninsula where you can tie off your boats or paddle boards. It's also a great waterfowl habitat, so you're going to see all kinds of ducks and geese down here, and just a great addition to this piece of property. So another great feature of this property is they have a heat pump for the heating and cooling. And the reason I bring that up, and if a lot of the bigger homes around here use it because it's a super efficient way to heat and cool your house, but it's run, they have a bunch of lines that are buried out here in the yard. And so if you're looking at any property with a heat pump system, you want to make sure you know where all those lines are in the ground. How it works is it pumps a combination of water and antifreeze through the pipes. And even in the winter, the ground, as deep as they go, doesn't get as cold as the outside air. So then, say like 50 degrees, so they're just heating that up from 50 degrees up to 70 or whatever you want it at. And then same in the summer, it takes that 50-degree air and cools down the fluids and gives you a cooler house for much cheaper than a regular electric furnace or air conditioner. But my main point is you want to make sure you know where those lines are in the ground. So if you ever decide to dig something up, dig a big hole, put in a new barn or something, you're not tearing that up, because that'd get pretty expensive to replace. So the last thing I wanted to show you, and it's definitely not the least important, this is the wellhead. This is one of two wells out here. And when you buy a property here in Montana, you definitely want to check into the water rights, make sure they've all transferred, and then they transfer into your name. Because as they say out here in the West, he who owns the water is king. So you don't want to get into a situation where someone else owns the rights to your water. So make sure you check that out, and make sure you have enough water, or you have the rights to enough water to do whatever it is you want to do out here. If you would like more information on this property or something similar, please call or email us. All of our contact information is coming up next, or you can find it in the show notes.
Thank you for watching our video. Please call, text, or email for more information, and don't forget to watch our other videos about Montana.